Let me tell you why you're here.
You're here because you know something. And what you know, you can't explain, but you can feel it. You felt it after your first ride, that there's something wrong with future motion. You don't know where it is, but it is there, like a failing sensor driving you mad. It's this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Vesc baseboards.
Piss-esque.
Do you want to know what it is? You've already felt it when you've had your mounts of shame. You've already heard it when your board started to buzz and beep, then bucked you off for no apparent reason. And you've already seen it when you've attempted to repair your board and it bricked itself, the device you once believed you owned. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth, that you are a slave to future motion. This is your last chance. After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends, and you believe that Future Motion did create the first one wheel, and that the $3,200 GTS is worth its price. Or you take the red pill. You join the Veskify Discord server, and I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more. Follow me. All right, let's do this. So there are a few things that I like to say before we get this on the road. One, I'm just deconstructing the entire board. Once we get to the actual technical things, I'll start getting into it a little bit more. So this is just the installation guide. We're not gonna be talking about the motor or IMU configuration for this board through Vesc Tool, nor are we going to be talking about setting up the lighting module. This is just an installation guide, just the actual physical hardware. So I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Will D's pint conversion video. His is gonna be a lot more in-depth than technical than this one. I encourage you to keep an eye out for his third and final Vesc video coming out, whenever that does eventually come out. Until then, we got this going, so I hope this works for you. So now we're at the controller. I would say to put on gloves and just be very, very careful, because this piece could be worth anywhere to $150, $250, just depending on where the market flows. So if I were you, I would try to conserve this piece. I mean, Future Motion and everything they're for, but at least get your money where your money's due, right? Somewhere around here, we're going to be taking out the XT60. Somewhere around here, we're going to take out the BMS data wire. Then we're going to take out this screw, this screw, this screw, this screw, this screw, and you guessed it, this screw. Go ahead and take out this little light wire right here. And then we're going to take out these nuts. These nuts. So somewhere around here are the aforementioned these nuts. Go ahead and unscrew these and get them nice and loose. We're going to be pushing it out sort of from this area. Take these motherfuckers out. This next part, this is my handy dandy heat gun. You could probably use a hair dryer or something. But there is a thermal pad underneath of this that dispenses heat into the metal box. Warm this dude up somewhere around this area. Just like that, and you should be relatively good. I don't know. And then just slowly, you should be able to just like, I think right now I should be playing the part of the video where I'm slowly pushing it out. Just be very careful when you do this, trying to not mess up any of the components. Again, it's worth money or not. Future Motion. Now, this part here, I'm going to go ahead and Sharpie over with lines, the parts that we're going to go ahead and cut off, but we're going to cut off some of these middle edge support lines. The controller is going to be blocked by those, so we need to get it some extra space. I personally have a Dremel, because Dremels are amazing, but you can do this with a hot knife, with a pair of clippers, any way that you can just get those ridges all the way down and off, and you should be pretty good. And I would suggest sanding them down and getting them smooth. Why? I don't think it's that big of an issue, but you might have cords, wires, abrasing over top of abrasing. Is that a word? I don't know. You might have wires touching it, and I just make that some move. Know what I'm saying? So this is our motor connector, and then this is our foot pad connector. All you're gonna do is take them and slide them into those little holes over there. Put on the little, what is it, the waterproof little washer, and then the big washer over top of it. Get them nice, sealed, put down, and we should be good to go. Here and there. This is stupid. So next, we're gonna make sure that our polarity is right. Sometimes Future Motion flips the polarity. Sometimes Ava likes to flip the polarity. It's kind of hit or miss. But just make sure that the red matches the red and the black matches the black. Otherwise, in my case, we're good though. Make sure to rip up this black thing. You'll risk, I guess it'll just won't transfer heat as well. And when it becomes summertime, your board may not function well. So just go ahead and take this flimsy piece of shit out of there. Isn't she a beauty? We're basically just gonna go through and take out all the screws in this little outer shell area. Just take off the larger block and then that front face panel block. Get it completely naked. Strip her down. Good. Mine was sort of stuck in there, so I had to press in and kind of just get the heat sink to push up and out of it. And I was good and golden to go. And there she is. Beautiful. So here, we're gonna go ahead and put on our mounting plate. Mine is made out of plastic. I just got an earlier version of it, but by now you should have a metal one. When you're screwing this in, you're gonna use the screws that came from the actual U-box box itself. So just make sure that you use the big ones instead of the small ones. That's our thermal pad, and it's gonna go on that little bottom area where that exposed piece of metal is. That's gonna create contact between the metal case itself and that, so heat dissipation is all good to go. Yep, so now just go ahead and carefully fit it into there. Just be sure not to hit anything or break anything. Use gloves. I don't know, I use gloves with my Enoid. Felix probably used gloves for this too, just to stay safe. Go ahead and set it in, screw it in, and we should be pretty good. So these are our phase wires, I believe. These direct connectly to the motor. I don't believe there's an actual order that they go in, but correct me if I'm wrong there. But I don't think there's an issue, but just might as well be safe, just put it on right. Now here starts to be some of the more tricky parts with this conversion. So all you're gonna do is take this piece, pull up those little tabs, take out the wires, and then repin them to a different connector so that it adapts properly to the U-box. You're gonna find this dude somewhere in a collection of wires that you were given for this entire set. I believe, what is that? I'm looking on my phone right now, give me a second. I think that looks like, I think that's an 8 or a 10 pin. I'm not too sure. We are going to get the larger head off of there. So go ahead and unpin all those wires too and get the larger connector. So now here comes the point where we're gonna be taking the wires and then connecting them to the right place on the U-box. So if you look on the shell itself, it should have listed out with the 83, 82, TX, RX, 81, ground, 3.3 volt, and 5 volt R. You should be able to see an entire list of that, and you're gonna connect it to the right place. I would suggest taking the connector, orienting it properly to that little hole, and then figuring out exactly where these ones go. But if you follow this diagram, that's essentially where they're all gonna go. And then now, all we're gonna do is connect it into the appropriate place. You should see where the appropriate place is on the video here. I can't really describe it because I'm looking at a green screen, but it should be somewhere around there. Now all we're gonna do is take our motor wire that we should have and connect it from the motor pins into where I plug it in here on the U-box. This little piece here is our Bluetooth module. You're gonna plug it into whatever hole that is. I should point it out. I originally used tape just to hold it down temporarily, but then I opted for putting down some super glue and tucking it away somewhere. My plastic bracket had a little spot for it, but the metal one didn't. So just find anywhere that is a good place out of the way and safe and has nice and flat, and just glue it on there. You'll be fine. Alright, sweet. Now we're using that T20-bit to go ahead and unlock this entire battery case. What is there, like 10 screws or something? Just squish, and get into that mode. Alright, go ahead and flip it over, take off that case, and voila. I'll be honest with you, I don't know the bit to this thing. It's like some weird, like, Allen wrench thing. I honestly have no idea. I just took a flathead and just got it out. Warning, it is extremely important that you unplug and replug this BMS in the correct order. You're going to, 1, unplug the balance cords. That's the white tab. You're going to take that off first, then take off the XT60s. And don't mind me like being like really monstrous with like using a screwdriver to get it undone. It's hard. They're stuck in there hard. It's almost like someone didn't want you to do this. Essentially, this next step is us doing the BMS bypass, putting a fuse in between these two XT60s. It's going to be this one right here. Don't do it on the other one. Don't just make sure you're putting this on the right one. The way I would suggest doing this first is by going through and trying to scrape off a little bit of the conformal coating. Then you're going to go ahead and pre-tin it. Just go ahead and get just a little bit more on there before we put it in. Now, this part, I literally had my roommate help me by holding the fuse in the right place and then me soldering it in. The most important part is to make sure that it has a very solid connection going through both places. I believe these pictures should showcase that a little bit more. So there's like 4 sides to this little fuse. Try to add solder all the way around it and making it flow into that main like XT backing area. There's a lot of power going through this part, and we need to make sure we have a solid connection. Alrighty, now that you've soldered in your fuse, go ahead and replug everything back in together. Just make sure you're doing it in the right order. XT60s first, then the balance leads. Essentially, if you leave the balance leads in connected by themselves, your BMS and battery might explode. Oopsies. So you're gonna take this is our latching button, and you're gonna put it in there. Now this is the part where we're going to be testing our connections and making sure that our U-box is all wired correctly and everything is all good. And all you're going to do is turn it on. Alright, now it's time to work on the lighting controller side of this entire thing and get this entire project wrapped up. So you're going to go ahead and find this dude. He's a 5-pin connector. You're going to unpin it and take off one of the sides. We're going to use the side that is still connected in just a second. What I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to take this little piece and pair it up next to the little connector. It should be right here where it's going to go. With the farthest left wire, we're going to go ahead and unpin since we don't need it. So now once you plug it in, it should look something like this. The first wire is gone, but the second, third, fourth, and fifth are all still there. So now we're going to go ahead and find this 3-pin connector, and you're going to go ahead and unpin that, and we're going to salvage the 3-pin connector on the end. Screw the wires, we don't care about them. On the lighting controller side, you're going to take the 12-volt and the ground wires, and you're going to route them up into the respective places onto here. Whatever it says right there, it says it right there. Do that. Again, if you hold it into the right spot, like you're trying to plug it in, you should see the proper area. Or just wait 5 seconds and I'll show you what it looks like when it's connected, and then you can have like the mental model connection of where it needs to be. Just give me a second. Now, we're gonna go ahead and take this connector back out because our 2 remaining wires are actually gonna go inside of there. Now, be warned that we have one called TX and one called RX. And you might instinctively want to mash them like we did 12 and ground, but in this case, they're actually going to switch spots on the other side of the connector. So just mind where they're going on the connector and then plug it, repin it back in. All right, now we're gonna use that other connector and plug it back in. I told you if you just waited a few seconds, you would see where to plug it back in at, and you'd see which spot it goes into, right? Now Ava has given us one of these connectors. It's going to go into the light bar and then into the controller. This is honestly the easiest connection to make if you mess this up. Yep, there it is, right where I tapped that. Put it right there. And now this should be a general overlook of how things should be. Okay, so we have two different types of switches, and we're gonna plan on still using our momentary switch. We're gonna take the end of the momentary switch and put it into the adapter. So the end of this adapter isn't gonna work with the U-box, so we have to unpin it and then repin it to another 4-pin connector. There's the 4-pin connector. Just make sure whenever you're doing this that you orient it into the right spot before you plug it in, and make sure that it lines up with the diagrams, just so you don't mess up anything. We're gonna update our board to make it work with our momentary switch. To do that, we're gonna be using our latching switch temporarily to get power to our board, then switch it out. So one, you're gonna go ahead and download this file. Go ahead and get this thing downloaded. This is our entire firmware update. So go ahead and plug in your latching switch, turn on your board. You're gonna get on your phone and connect to Vesc Tool. Hey there, I'm gonna pause the video for a second. It is 12:17 a.m. as I'm editing this, and I discovered that I didn't explain this part all too well, so I'm going to re-explain it right now. You are going to go ahead and scroll all the way over to the firmware tab. On the very bottom left, you'll see the firmware version, the hardware version, and the UUID that is currently installed on your Vesc. If you scroll down, you will come to a custom file. You're going to choose that file that I talked about before, the U-Box 100 momentary switch file, and you're going to upload that. There's two buttons, upload and upload all. You'd press upload all if you had multiple Vescs, so like Eastgate would use upload all, but we have one big wheel, so we're just going to press upload. Now, of course, do not turn off your one wheel. Don't do anything to mess it up. It is going to go through and update itself, and then it's going to turn itself back off, and then I believe it'll turn itself back on, and we should be good to go. So after we've done our momentary switch update, we're going to remove the latching and then plug in our adapter to the momentary switch. They both go in the same place, so it shouldn't be that confusing. And then you're going to have to press and hold for, I think it's about 1 to 3 seconds. My board takes a second for it to turn on. Look, I'll go get my board. Give me a second. It's no longer an insta click. You have to kind of press it in and hold it for a second, and then it'll go through and turn on and whatnot. And now, if you test it, it should light up and work completely. I am so tired of editing this video. Just a few things I'd like to say before this video is over and done with. First off, pesks are awesome. When you're putting your board back together, go ahead and put dielectric grease inside of your motor connector. It's just gonna help protect it from corrosion and water damage. And when you're putting your rails back on, make sure to put on your retaining clip right here. This is gonna help pull heat away from all the energy that's being pulled through that connector, since we're using a lot more of it now. This little dude is literally a mini GT. Man, this being my first Vesc, the fact that I can nearly overpower any other Future Motion model with just this dude is insane. Thank you to the two Avasparks brothers that made this entire kit so accessible and easy to get through. They have some of the best customer support I've ever had before. They were there for me the entire time, coaching and leading me through the entire thing. So thank you, Avasparks, for getting me this kit. So throughout this entire video, you've heard two artists playing their music. One is going to be my childhood friend Tyson. Here is all of his music, and you can go find all of his beats, raps, and everything that he makes over here. And then the other person is your best friend Jippy. I've been using both of these guys back and forth. I love their music. I hope you can forgive me for not having a Matrix outro for this. I'm already so tired of editing this and doing all this. This is how I'm ending the video right now.